All of the venues that we're showing Codex in are connected in the most intimate ways with the story of Cuthbert and his community. The places that we've chosen are Lindisfarne, the Holy Island, as it was called after the conquest. We've chosen Newcastle as well, Chester Street, St Peter's Sunderland and St Paul's Jarrow. These are all ancient places and connected to the story very distinctly.
We're standing now in the churchyard of St Mary's Church. The priory is just behind me, and this is where the Lindisfarne Gospels were written. So they're hugely significant to this island.
This is a major project for us. This is allowing us to look at these documents in detail, to look at the way that people worked on them 1,500 years ago, the dyes that they used, how they made the ink, how they produced the parchment, and also to get some feel of the structure of the society which they must have had around them to provide all this stuff.
We tend to think about the Lindisfarne Gospels at its end point, this amazing manuscript, but I'm really interested in thinking about all those processes which lead up to the creation of a work of art like that. So that might be making the parchment, putting together the inks, and just actually the site where it was produced. We're standing here about probably within 100 yards of where it was made.
We knew that we wanted to look at the documents slightly sideways. We didn't want to tell the story of Cuthbert and his body being moved around the northeast and over all that period. We thought that had been done already. We really wanted to look at the way the documents were produced.
Crush these all together
and use it for painting on parchment.
The trouble we went to do was obviously something of crucial importance to produce, and all the love and devotion that must have gone in to make the living word
That's right.
live for future generations.
One of the really nice things about Codex is that we've been able to do what I like to do the most, which is to go to original documents and use those as part of the piece. So they become the sound, so they actually become the soundtrack, part of the human soundtrack of the piece itself. It really makes a more immediate connection, I think, to use the original languages and then to weave them together into almost a tapestry of sound for people then to listen to and become immersed in. And the response that we've been getting for Codex is that that's really quite meaningful for the people who are listening to it for the first time.
I like the sound effects with the colours.
Yes.
And the movement on the ceiling and hearing the story.
Yes.
Of all the people involved, like Benedict going to Rome, and it makes it all very real because they were real people doing real things.
I was blown away when I watched it this morning for the first time. I've popped back in and out all through the day because once isn't enough to watch it. It is atmospheric, but actually it draws you in a beautiful way to that world. We all learn in different ways apart from anything else. So Codex having this beautiful sound and light projection really, really draws people in. So many people today here who've come to see the projection have used the word atmospheric. Yeah, it's creative and unusual and really exciting.
many times in Gaul, Italy.
The projection is very unusual. It's very small scale. It's internal. So Ross and Karen normally work on massive scale and onto buildings. This one is onto an animal skin, in this case a calf skin. This is the material that medieval books are on the whole made of, and this is certainly the material of the Lindisfarne Gospels. Vellum is incredibly tough. It lasts. Books that were made in the Middle Ages are in better condition than most 1950s paperbacks. So it's an important element in the survival, in fact, of this society and how we know about it. The projection uses the vellum. It's ever so slightly translucent, which means that you can back project through it. And in a sense, this also ties the projection very closely to the book itself.
When I was sent some images of parchment production by the historians at Durham, they sent me these pictures of a monk scraping a skin spread on a frame, and I thought that, okay, well, if that's parchment, then that would act like a screen. It'll be translucent. And I managed to find a company in the UK, there's only one now, still making parchment in exactly this way, and their process has not changed in the 1500 years since the Lindisfarne Gospels were produced. They still have this wooden frame, and if you compare it to what you see in these medieval manuscripts, it's an identical item. So in all that time, they've not come up with a better way of producing this material, which is fascinating in itself.
Making something on parchment, when it comes down to it, it's about using a part of an animal. And a monastery like Lindisfarne would have lots of farmland. It would be exploiting animals in all sorts of ways. So thinking about parchment, it's about thinking. It's a way into thinking about the whole landscape and agriculture and economy of somewhere like Lindisfarne. We tend to think of Lindisfarne as being somewhere on the edge. It's on an island. Now it's up near a border between England and Scotland. But in the early medieval period, first of all, Northumbria was very, very big. It ran from the Humber up to the Firth of Forth. So Lindisfarne was right in the heart of that big kingdom which sat in the middle of Britain. Also, being by the sea, it had those amazing coastal connections, and it reached out towards the North Sea world. But we know that more generally, this is part of the Christian church, of course, which also reaches across Europe. But in this period, the Christian church is reaching right across the Near East, the Middle East, reaching down into Ethiopia. It's reaching out into Central Asia. So we're just at the kind of one corner of a very large shared intellectual and religious endeavour.
We did not know that there was these direct connections to Ethiopia, to Rome and the wider world in Europe. People going backwards and forwards, bringing ideas, spreading ideas, and this kind of cross-pollination of documents and books being brought back to create this powerhouse of book generation, these manuscript factories in a way, and these being traded around the world. It's a fascinating story.
I mean, much like the Gospels themselves, this is a layering of different talents, different people. There were a number of academics involved, a number of colleagues, particularly with linguistic skills. So we have experts in Old English, in Latin, in Coptic even, and Greek. And these tell the story of the intensely local production, but also how connected this is to the really big stories, international traditions of illuminated manuscripts and Gospels.
In order to represent those languages as accurately as possible, given that those languages are not spoken, some of them are completely dead and not spoken at all, and others are spoken only in certain situations or circumstances, Latin being one of them. It was really important to find people who understood those languages and were able to speak to them, and this is where really the academics at Durham come into their own. And it takes it to another level. It helps it come to life as a very real experience.
There's this moment where one of the academics is speaking this list of colours in Latin, and there's another voice saying the same colour in modern English so that you can understand what's going on. And there's just something very compelling about that.
Azure, Vermilion, Orpiment, Sanguis Draconis, Dragon's Blood, Greek Green, Indigo, Carmine, Saffron.
Projects like this are incredibly important in university research. Partly the civic obligation of universities, we're repositories of learning, but we need to tell people about the stuff that we do. Part of the excitement comes from telling people about the stuff that you're excited about, but it's also the interaction with different audiences, different insights. In this particular case, because of the local interest of the Lindisfarne Gospels, it's wonderful to come to communities that were associated with either the book or the community up to 1300 years ago. Taking this work out to communities in the region is incredibly important. It's almost the most important thing. The meaning and depth of it come when you talk to people. You talk to people in the places and you talk to communities. It's incredibly important that our ideas and our thinking and our research are shared. We get a lot back too, so the questions from the audience provoke new thinking and provoke new thoughts from our side. So actually it's a wonderful two-way process.